Growing up at my grandmother's house, because we all did a stint there, it was our Robben Island. We all had to go live with our grandmother. All I could remember was when it got dark and the wood stove was on. There was no television, obviously because there was no electricity. But the rest of the time is conversations until bedtime. And you would hear how people get mimicked. They say things and they put on voices, and I laugh my head off. And I've seen how that translated to me doing stand-up because I enjoy putting on a voice.
I don't know you that well.
Then we keep biting.
Then they keep, I don't know you that. Where do you live?
Manhattan.
Oh, I'm coming with you.
After a 5-year hiatus, Eugene Khoza is back. Known as one of the best minds in comedy, with 8 one-man comedy specials captivating audiences with his multilingual talents. Join us as we go inside the world of a comedian who has navigated life's difficult chapters and renewed the love for his art form. Started already, bro. So yeah, thank you so much for doing this, bro. Like,
Anytime
appreciate
for you,
it, bro.
Anytime. And there's a few people that I say that to, and I really mean it, because I felt like sometimes I used to say, yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah.
And I feel like that's a response I give to people where it's more for me than it is for them. But when I really mean it, if I say anytime for a person, I really mean it, because there's so many things that I could be doing.
Yeah.
Then I'm like, but I chose this because also it satisfies me to a certain level,
Yes, I appreciate that, bro.
Man, anytime for you, George.
A place I really love to start these conversations, bro, is like if we were reading your autobiography or, say Eugene, what would you call it?
The dreamer.
Eugene, the dreamer.
Yeah.
If we were reading the autobiography now, where do you think? That's a funny title, though, by the way.
I know.
Where does that story start from?
It starts when I always hear stories of people that talk about their odds were against them. And then they'll talk about they grew up in the village, we're going to fetch water. And I'm like, I hear you. And then you'd hear people who survive wars.
Yes.
And then I'm like, I hear you. You'd hear people in America obviously love the story of being immigrants and their second generation American and their families came. And I'm like, I hear that.
Yes.
And then there's my story where I feel like for a long time, I underestimated how stacked the odds were against me growing up.
Yeah.
And I say to myself, I've been too hard on myself. I didn't give myself a break. I didn't say to myself, well done. And I don't know where that came from because growing up, I had so much validation from my mom. And then instead of giving it to myself, I never gave it to myself. And I can't give it to my daughter, but I can't give it to myself. And growing up in Mamelodi, we, obviously if you're South African, you know what a 4-roomed house is.
Yes, of course.
So those who don't know, it's a kitchen, it's a bedroom, another bedroom, and a living room. And then that's it.
Yeah.
That's the 4 rooms, not 4 bedrooms.
Yeah.
I grew up there with my 3 other siblings, my mom and my dad, who, for as long as I could remember, they were not getting along. And then they divorced when I was in primary school. But the one thing I always remember was sitting outside every day after school, from preschool days to school. I would sit at our back gate and I would look out into the abyss, which was, in that case, Pretoria East, the suburb.
Okay.
You could actually see it from our house because Mamelodi, where we stayed, that section, is in a hill.
Gotcha.
So you could actually see the city. I would sit there from after school, after doing my chores and my homework, up until it gets dark, when the lights in the city go on. And in my head, I was always fascinated about what happens over there. So once a month, you'd go to town, do groceries, and buy clothes when it's your turn to get clothes, because obviously there's a rotation that happens every month. Someone else gets clothes. When it's my turn, I would ask my mom. We take the taxi that goes a long way around, and all we'd do is just go to those areas first before ending up in town. And my dream would come true every time we took the trip.
Yeah.
So I realized that dreams do come true, and all I did was just sit there and I told myself, first job I get, with real money, that's the house I'm gonna buy. It's gonna be there, and it happened. My dream came true, and I could live in a place that I always watched from the other side. But the sadness in my life became the fact that I couldn't see where I came from where I wanted to end up.
Yes.
And I knew something was off. I knew this couldn't be my destination if I couldn't attach the two places together.
Got you. Tell me a bit more about your parents, bro. What did they...
My mom was a nurse. She's retired now, and my dad was a policeman.
Okay.
They met obviously way before I was born. My mom already had a child, which was my older brother, Jacob.
Okay.
And then they met and got married, and they had my sister, Catherine. They had me, and then they had my brother, Jeremiah. And then obviously I'm the third in the bunch, and then Jeremiah is the last born of the whole bunch.
Got you. And so where does, like, in your journey, like, where's that first moment, first memory where comedy comes into play? And before that, are you just like a naturally funny human? Or
I think I'm not funny at all. I know funnier people. I always say I'm gifted to know when to put it on. And I've always said to people, comedy loves me more than I love comedy. I know people who love comedy, who know comedy like the back of their hand. Yeah. And I try hard not to fall in love with it, but it keeps finding me. Yeah. But the earliest memory of fun was growing up at my grandmother's house, because we all did a stint there. It was our Robben Island. Yes. We all had to go live with our grandmother, who lived with my aunt, who lived with her kids over there in the village. Yeah. And all I could remember was when it got dark and the wood stove was on. There was no television, obviously, because there was no electricity. So the radio would be on, but at certain times because it had to save the battery. Yeah. But the rest of the time is conversations until bedtime. And you'd hear how people get mimicked and their voices that describe who that person is. So we had real life radio. And my aunt was very good at giving people names. You know, she would call people, even her own siblings, she would give names to.
Crazy.
And then that was so funny because you try not to laugh, but you'd be like, this is the funniest set I've ever heard. And till today, you know, my mom is also very funny. Yeah. My older sister is very funny. They say things and they put on voices and I laugh my head off. And I've seen how that translated to me doing stand-up because I enjoy putting on a voice. It doesn't have to be accurate. In my head, it sounds sharp. Yes. But it's not a Mandiba voice or an iconic voice. It's a voice of someone I know. Yeah. And I'm like, that is him.
Yes, yes.
So that's the earliest memory of comedy that I can think of, man.
And when was like the first thing you saw that you were like, wow, this is an actual career path. People do this for a living. There are comedians out there. Like, when's your first sort of link with the comedy world? Where you're like, this is an actual industry, you know, outside of your aunt. And do you remember seeing something, or do you remember like...
We all remember that moment in comedy in South Africa from our generation is seeing David Gao in a Discovery 3.
Yes, yes.
And you're like,
100%.
This thing is real.
Yeah.
You know, that's all he does. And he drives a Discovery 3.
Yes.
And sometimes he brings his BMW. This is it. You know, so yeah, that moment changed everything. And I will never forget how one day I sat with him in his car. It was a cold night at Horror Cafe in Newtown, the club that Kiriboni started with.
Yes, yes.
And I have to give a big shout out to Kiriboni. Yes. Without him, I wouldn't be doing stand-up comedy. And then,
crazy.
And then in months in of doing comedy, David Gao pulled up, you know, and it was a cold night. The room was pretty much empty. And then he went to go sit in the car for a while and he said, come with. And then we just sat there in the car in silence, in that warm aircon and, you know, that high view from the Discovery. Yes, yes. Leather seats, beige leather seats. And then I was like, man, how does a person crack this thing? As we're looking at because the venue was like a few flights of stairs up and people were just people trickling in cold wearing their jackets. And then he just said, just be funny. And I was like, it can't be that easy in my head.
Yes.
Then he was like,
but you're doing comedy at this point.
Yeah. That's the only room I'm doing.
Okay.
I'm 6 months in.
Is that just take me just a few steps back. Was that what was the first time you were like, I'm going to actually do this and I'm going to go was it an open mic? Was it that same venue?
Was it the same venue?
Someone pushed you to do it? Or what was that process leading up to? Or are you there a couple of nights going,
no.
Hey, I can do this? Or how does that first moment where you get on stage happen?
Wow. I'd never seen stand-up comedy
Yes.
I think I can count in my hand how many stand-up comedy shows I've watched,
Yes.
like specials,
Yes.
in my life.
Yes.
I'd never watched comedy at that point ever in my life. There was this friend of mine. We lived in the same building together. His name was Prof. He was a musician. He was a rapper.
Yes.
He had a friend called Trevor Gumbi who had just started comedy.
Okay.
And then he said to me, my friend, he said, you have to meet this guy, Trevor.
Yeah.
And then he said to Trevor, you have to meet this guy, Eugene. And then we finally met one day. And then he had a show that Wednesday. And then he said, let's go together. And then I got there, I met Kidiboni Mulaudzi. The first thing Kidiboni asked me was like, yo, do you want to jump on? Then I was like, there's no jumping on anything here. What are we jumping on to? He was like, man, just do whatever. And then if it doesn't work, I'll tell you that you suck and we'll stop. And then Gumbi went on and other people went on. And then Kidiboni said, and this next guy. And then he brought me on. I didn't know what I was going to say. I started talking about everything that I saw on my way to the club.
That's
and the
crazy,
comedy bug had bitten. I never looked back.
And
since then,
and
I was there every
worked.
Wednesday.
People were laughing. People were in the zone.
People were laughing. People were in the zone. I was in the zone. I don't remember half of the things I said that night.
That's crazy, bro.
And then I walked back and I said, I've been searching for a long time. I think I found something here. And then I never stopped. I was there every Wednesday. I was a devoured, how do you call it? Jehovah's Witness of that room. I never missed a night. I would always canvas people to come and watch. And I credit that place for giving me a career and some direction in my life because I felt
crazy, bro.
I felt a bit lost at the time.
Do you know how absurd that sounds? Because like, I think of the beatbox world of me like having to practice and find a space where you can do something and express yourself. That's like you getting like pulling up to a beatbox competition and they're like, yeah, my man, it's your turn. And then next thing you just can do the thing. It's like, this is the art form we're talking about. It's like, think of it as rap. Imagine you the guy that pulled up to a rap battle who's never rapped in his life and you're like, oh, okay, we just need to put words together and make it rhyme. And you go out there and find your feet first time. It's pretty crazy, bro. You know, like,
I've never thought of it like that. I've never thought of it like that.
Like, bro, it's crazy. Like, and you know, this is maybe a testament of maybe some of the people that were around you and the voices that you could do and just like that perfect timing of like, that could have gone horribly wrong.
Yeah,
you could be traumatized, but you could have hated stand-up comedy. But I
wouldn't have known what stand-up comedy was.
That's crazy.
Because I didn't know what it was.
Something special about also not knowing, right? Because it's given you that edge, I guess, in your first
remain curious.
That's correct. Yeah, remaining curious. Absolutely.
Yeah, I didn't know what it was. So there was no way I could fail. And that's how I've chosen to approach life from anything that I do, whether it's learning how to shoot, whether learning how to street ride, whether learning how to do enduro. I always approach it in a way that I'm like, if it's my first time and I fail, I'm allowed to.
Yeah.
If it's my 5th time and I fail, I'm also allowed
100%.
to. If it's my 1,000th time and I fail, I'm also allowed to because it's someone who's done it 1,001 times.
Yeah.
So there's no way I could be the grand master of this thing. And I've always tried to shy away from being a master. I don't want to be a master.
Yeah.
I don't want to be the first or the best to ever do it. I just want to be able to say I did it. That's good enough for me.
I love that. I love that. I really relate to that, you know?
Yeah.
But like when I think back, bro, to like, you know, when we are performing circuits and I was in these circuits too and doing corporate shows, bro, there's like a time where you are arguably top 2 comedians in the freaking country. Like you are definitely the guy that everyone's going technically, like if we're just talking comedy technically, and I'm not going to, you know, it's like subjective and people can have their own opinions on but like when we're just talking like technical skill of like writing and connecting jokes and like in-depth conversation and how you are approaching comedy as an art form.
Right.
You know, there's this time where you are like, bro, you're literally everywhere. You're playing every big gig. You are on every big brand deal. And then it almost felt like this conscious decision to step away. Like, can you take me to that time? Like, and people I would ask in the comedy world would also tell me like, Eugene's just not into it like that. He's technically one of the best, arguably, you know, like top 2 in the whole freaking country of like, you know, in many people's opinions, you're the best comic in the country. Like,
those people need to get out more.
No. It's like, and I know a lot of comedians will also agree to this, you know, but like, what was that time? Like, can you take me through that? I mean, I think you were doing some brand work. You almost like stepped away from comedy. And can you take me through that time, bro? Because it's like the time where you're killing it. I think we're all accustomed to that time. You were that guy, and, you know, you're rolling with Trevor, and you guys were like, you know, if he wasn't at a gig, it was you there. If, you know, you weren't there, he was there. It was wild, you know?
Whoa. I think it's in two parts for me. One, it was a personal conscious decision, and one, it was a spiritual forced conscious decision.
Got you.
The first one was I never imagined my life turning out the way it would have, or the way it did. Comedy for me was a vehicle to do something else and to get something else. So when it started becoming about brands and television, I'd never auditioned for a TV show. And my first year on doing comedy, I was already doing a show called Countdown 2010, where a friend of mine spotted me, who became a good friend of mine, who just recently passed away during COVID, Moikwa Sisulu. He spotted me in a club, and he convinced me to do the show. And my job consisted of traveling the world, covering major sporting soccer events. That time, I don't even like soccer.
That's wild.
And that's my first TV gig. And when I look back at that,
how that gig happened?
6 months before, I was working at the mall. So for me, I wasn't connecting the dots, you know. So crazy, and then a few months after that, this happens, and the TV show happens, and this happens, and then radio happens, and all of that jazz. I had felt like I'd lived all of my dreams, and I'd felt like in all of that, people had a perception of who I am, but it wasn't really me. But then you're always faced with a choice where money is involved. Do you tell people the truth?
Yeah.
You know, you almost have the Bruce Wayne Batman moment.
Yes.
Do you tell people the truth, who you really are, or you just let them live in the fantasy?
Yeah.
And I chose to tell my own truth. And luckily for me, is I've always believed in privacy, not secrecy.
Yeah.
So if you know me personally and close to me, you'd know what's going on. But the general public did not understand what was going on in my life. One, I've always been private.
Yeah.
And I believe that to be the cornerstone of everyone's success
is
to keep a little bit of yourself. You know, the Japanese say you've got 3 hearts,
100%,
right?
100%.
So I believe you must always keep the 3 hearts. You know, you can't have them all out there in the public.
Yes.
And I felt like I was losing myself. I would sit in meetings and I'd hear people discussing this Eugene character. And it wasn't me.
That's crazy.
I would get paid an amount of money, and I felt like, but you're not paying for me. You don't really know who I am. So when the jig is up, what are you going to think of me? And I had to contend with that emotionally. I thought to myself, do I want to be exposed as a fraud, or do I want to stop this and actually invest time in being authentic and being myself? And I tell you now, George, during the process of doing that, I heard so many rumors about myself. You know, I'd hear rumors circling back to me about I'm a difficult person to work with, or I quit things easily, or I tell people to go screw themselves easily. I'd hear all of these things, and it made me so satisfied, as much as it hurt me sometimes because it came from people that were close to me, but I got satisfied because I felt like I was listening to my own eulogy. I didn't have to be dead to know what people really thought about me.
Crazy.
And finally, I got that peace to know who I really was. And just as I was contending with that, my son passed away in 2017, and he was only 3 months old. And then that felt like my world ceased to exist. You know, if it wasn't for my daughter, I don't think I would have made it. Buhle is turning 16 now in September.
Yeah.
And she was very young at the time. She was 9 years old when her brother passed away. Yeah. And she nursed me back to health, because I think without seeing her living and going to school and laughing and her telling me stories and keeping me preoccupied with school projects, I wouldn't be sitting here today. Oh, and I feel like that decision I took to find myself, if I didn't have that background when my son passed away, I think I would have easily lost myself completely. So I always feel like the universe was getting me ready to face the truth about myself. I first got to hear it from other people. Yeah. And then when my son passed away, I got to hear it from myself. Am I strong enough? Do I love life that much? Yes. When I say I'll do anything for my daughter, do I mean it? Yeah. Do I think I've worked hard enough to be able to start over? And that's what my mom imparted on me. You can always start over,
Amazing.
and I found refuge in my faith. I found refuge in practicing Buddhism. I found refuge in knowing who God really is when it's all said and done. And you know what? The people that call you for endorsements and the people that roll with you backstage, they're not there when the sorrow is there. And that's a
100%.
good thing.
Yeah.
Because sorrow starts with SO and so does solitude. You need to be by yourself. You need to hear what's going on. You need to quiet the world down to actually find out who you are. And when all of those two events happened, the first one, which was self-induced, and the second one where the universe was like, we were getting you ready for this. When I started wanting to do comedy again, George, man, nothing could hurt me anymore, man. I didn't feel like if a brand hears this, they would be like, oh, we don't want that guy. Or if I wasn't dressed like this, then the audience would be like, oh, he's not like the other guy. I just felt a certain amount of calm and peace because I knew first time I did comedy again after all of that happened, that there was a big chance that I wouldn't have been standing on that stage. It could have all ended 7 years ago.
That's crazy, man.
Yeah.
And to happen back to back. I mean, these are two, like if we're thinking career and we're thinking family, these are two really big pillars in one's life,
Absolutely.
And then there's maybe,
Absolutely.
religion and what we follow and so on and so forth. This is like your two biggest pillars, like your two big pillars crash back to back.
Yeah.
And you're making it sound easy the way you've navigated
10 years
it,
next year, actually.
but
2025 is 10 years.
That's insane, bro. Like, and there are people who like try to navigate the world with that trauma.
Yeah.
But like, you are so light, bro. It feels like you have really dealt and you have really found a way to navigate through that pain. If someone is listening, bro, like what would be the steps you would give someone and a process to approach this? Because like, it's one thing losing career. It's a whole other thing losing a loved one, let alone, your son, which I think is the most hectic pain I think anyone could ever go through. How would you suggest someone navigates that, bro? Like, how did you even get through? Like, how?
I had to learn from a book I read that pain is permanent.
Yeah.
But suffering is self-induced. Just because I'm feeling something, I don't have to acknowledge that it's real. So if I stub my toe on the corner of my bed, and then I still have to go to the bathroom, but am I going to go back to go kick that corner again to make it feel what I felt? So now if I keep thinking about that corner, I'm torturing myself and I'm making myself suffer. But if I sit through the pain while I'm in the bathroom and I leave the bathroom and the pain gets less and less and I stop acknowledging the fact that there was a corner of the bed that did that. And it's a very essential part of the bed, that corner. So the things that cause us pain are seldom things that appeared or manifested from thin air. It's things that we have, our possessions, our loved ones, things that we do that define who we are, our bodies, our health, the hair that we have and the hair that we lose, our youth that we have and the youth that we lose, and our regrets. It's things that we have planted, sort of like the corners of the bed or the foot of the bed that we've put there that are needed for the bed to stand. But when we bump into them in the most unfortunate circumstances, we choose to villainize them, no longer looking at them as a pillar of what makes the whole entire experience make sense. So I understood that he had to be born. And I remember the times before he was born was a great time. I remember the time when he was born was a fantastic time. I remember the last few hours I spent with him, which coincidentally, the last picture taken of him was when I was with him alone, just the two of us, a few hours before he passed away. So I remember that. And then there was a time when he passed away. If I choose to make my whole entire life in his memory about the time that he passed away, then it means I'm forgetting that this pillar existed and I'm making it about now me stubbing my toe in it. Wow. Does it make sense?
100%.
So I have to isolate everything that I feel like makes me feel uncomfortable. I have to go, if George did that, his whole existence, I can't curse him and me knowing him and his whole existence just because at this moment, at this time, this hurt me. This hurt me because it happened. But do I think of him as a bad person? No. And I've learned to forgive myself, and it makes it easy for me to forgive others. There was nothing I could do about how he passed away, as much as I had nothing to do with when he was born and how he was born. So if I choose suffering, I would isolate that one moment of helplessness and make it the whole entire existence of his and mine.
100%.
Which will be a death sentence for both of us. Right? Yeah. So I've learned that over time, and I've learned to translate it into comedy. I translate it with money as well. If I have 1,000 Rand and I want what I want, do I keep the 1,000 Rand and keep the feeling? Or do I use 1,000 Rand as a pillar to support the more feelings that I want to achieve? The ecstatic euphoria that can be added after I had one with having the 1,000 Rand. So I choose to build and add more pillars. So there's more support whenever my emotions can't carry me through. I can always look back on a pillar that I've put up and then stand there and know that there's at least a support structure and thing that I've done that I can look back to and go, life isn't that bad at all.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's powerful, bro.
I try.
And it's like a perspective, and like that's a lot to think about. And I love like just the way you have approached it. When does the first, because hey, you're coming with a vengeance now, bro. I don't know if people see it, but I see you, bro. When it comes to the comedy, you're like, you've just got that spark, bro, that I have maybe seen, like you said, many, many years ago, bro. You've just got that, you can't explain it. It's like you're in, and there's like in as in people are trying to do something. And then there's that like, he's having fun. Everyone's in trouble. He's having fun, When does that spark come back and how? Or was it just a conscious decision of, I need to go back to this because I'm good at it? Or how does that sort of love for the art come back?
I knew some stuff needs time and experience for me to say them and articulate them, to feel them and experience them, and to also feel validated while I'm feeling them.
Yes.
I learned somewhere, it could be a lie, someone can fact check me on this, that I think, is it Japan or China? You cannot be a president until you reach a certain age.
Got you.
You have no idea what you're doing. At some point, you're just freestyling it and you're simulating behavior that you've seen from someone else. But at some point, when you've reached a certain age and a certain place in your life and you've racked up a certain amount of experience, then you are able to say other things and mean them. And not be mean by them.
Yeah.
It's no longer a by any means necessary.
Yes.
It's you're trying to validate your feelings and try and share them as much as you can. And whenever I stand in front of an audience, the first time I stood in front of an audience after my sabbatical, which lasted about 5 years or so, was at a small little room where the waiters were passing in front of me. And then there was a rinky-dink stage over there, 2 speakers who are, sound way better than me. Those speakers are usually used as monitors. And then there was the audience who was having dinner and chatting, and it was a dimly lit room. Crazy. And I just come back from PE because my daughter and I had moved to PE, beautiful beach house in a little village, 30 minutes outside of town. Beautiful. We were having the time of our life, and I wasn't concerned about coming to Joburg.
Yeah.
And then I came back just once to do something. And then I ended up in front of that audience. And as I stood there and the ground was moving from underneath me and waiters were passing and people were eating, it just took one person to turn around and pay attention for me to understand that this thing is not about the collective. It's about the individual. When you play the game of life, you start focusing on the team winning. You are the team. There's no one else. It's lonely because you're a single cell that turned into an organism that became a human being that started affecting people. But as time goes, you start losing yourself. You start attaching yourself to others so that you form a bigger organ that can move in a collective and they become a force of nature. But then you forget that you were born alone. There's so many cells inside of you that create you. You don't need a team. You already are a team. And this one person turned. They made that conscious decision to listen to this guy who probably they didn't recognize because I changed so much. I'm not the same weight as I was before. I'm not the same. I don't have the same facial hair. I had no facial hair before. But there must be something about what I said that made them turn around and go, what is that? And then I was like, I'm doing a show for you.
Wow.
If ever there was a time that I'm going to do a show for anybody, it's going to be for this person. That person turned to 3 people, 4 people. The room started quieting down after 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Then I was in there for 40 minutes and I was having the time of my life. And I thought to myself, there was a time when I almost thought this was not worth it. There was a time where I thought, I don't deserve this much happiness. and satisfaction.
Wow.
There was a time where I thought everyone was a liar and they didn't mean what they said. And then for the first time, a stranger turning back and leaving their food alone to hear what I have to say made it all fall into place. And I was like,
Crazy.
God, give me the strength. I'll do one more and another one and another one and another one and another one. And it's almost 2 years now.
That's crazy, bro. And I got to, I popped into the one at, was it at Gold Reef City?
Yeah. What was going? Oh, yes.
And that was before like you did the podcast and chill.
Yes.
And I saw you there and I was just like, bro, it was magical to see you.
Thank you.
It was magical to see you how it's like, bro, you've matured like a fine wine, bro. You've just come with you're so comfortable. It's madness. You're so comfortable and you're having fun and you've just like, you know, all those things that you were known for then is like, it feels like, my man, do you know what it feels like? It feels like
I found it.
for the last 5 years, you've been playing club somewhere and you're not telling anyone, you know, you've been just playing somewhere and you've just been refining and you're refining. And so it's incredible to see. It's like,
Thank you.
people come back into an art form being away for such a long time. And it's like, whew, hey, you've got ring rust. It's not the same with you. You've come back a little bit more refined, a little bit more. And I'm so excited, bro, to see what you're going to do. Like, do you have a trajectory at the moment? Is it like, yo, this is the plan. I'm going to do this room, that room, you know, and because I see you doing a lot of ticketed shows. You're like, you're not playing games. You're not waiting to get booked. You're just doing shows and you're filling rooms and the numbers are growing. Like, what is the trajectory of that? Is there a conscious plan or are you just taking it a day at a time?
I'll be lying if I said there was a conscious plan.
Yeah.
But there is a plan to affect everyone subconsciously.
Got you. I love that.
I love a small room more than anything. To be honest with you, and I know a lot of people are going to be like, boo, who are in comedy. I am blessed enough to make enough money doing other things than to worry about if George and his 10 friends show up, then I can say sold out.
Yes.
My motivation, you know, we've done rooms before.
Yes.
You can fill up a room and end up in debt. You can fill up a room and end up breaking even.
Yeah.
You can fill up a room with the wrong audience.
Yeah.
The heads are there, but their vibe is not your vibe.
100%.
And then that ends up damaging you.
Yeah.
I am privileged enough to be able to fly to Cape Town and break even.
Amazing.
But then what the audience gives me and what I give them is a new show. So every time I do a small room, I start with a disclaimer. I tell the truth about why we're here. I say, you're going to help me find a new show. If you're happy with that, then
we're styling.
if you're happy with that, we can go, right? But if you're not, I might disappoint you as time goes.
Yeah.
And if I do, I'm really sorry. But in a
love
small
that.
room,
Yeah.
you're going to help me find a show. Words have so much power, George, and we don't understand how words influence the chemistry in our bodies and in the room and the subconscious of others.
Yes.
The 2 times I've said that, I've come out with 2 one-man shows. One that I did at Gold Reef City,
Crazy.
which was started in a second small room after the first one I told you about.
Yes.
And I did that little disclaimer, and I did 3 shows in the Fine Ice chain, and I told people the same thing. By the time I got to the 3rd one, the show was refined. And then I was able, a month later, from starting comedy again, a month and a half later, I was able to do my one-man show and record that. Then I did it again last year. I did 4 of those same small rooms, and I said, guys, you're going to help me do a show. And the show is going to come out now as a special on Showmax. And then that's what I'm doing tonight, coincidentally. This is my first show after I've done that huge special, where the disclaimer is going to be the same as well. So when I look at audience, I'm like, I don't look at them as numbers that can add into my bank account. But I always say, how can I give back to you? There's things that I do that take 30 minutes to do that pay me what maybe a 10,000 seater show would pay me.
Crazy.
Right? But when I'm with 100 people, 50 people in a room, I feel like I'm giving back to them.
Yes.
Right? And
100%.
that's my community project, is having small rooms that help me find myself, that help me. It's my church. I go to pray there.
Wow.
You know, it's where I do my offering.
It's a temple.
It's my temple.
Yeah.
You know, it's my little shrine where I go and I pay homage to whatever has given me the strength to do this. And I say, God, give me the strength to show them the light that you've brought into my life through myself. Can I be a vessel now? Can I make the person forget what they're going through? Can I make them laugh at what I'm going to say? Can I make them think about what I have to say? And can they leave here and give a little bit of that light to someone else? Because you've already taken care of my bank balance. Throughout all of the notable successes that people may look at from the outside in my life, I'd never been as comfortable as I am now currently. Through whatever people think I was going through, and I was having the most amount of fun.
Wow.
I'd never been as comfortable. George, I had to let go. It almost feels like when I let go, everything started happening. Deals came on their own. I have a few current deals now that are going where I'm looking and I'm going, how? When everyone told me I'm difficult, when everyone told me I walk away from things, when everyone told me I don't have staying power, when everyone said to me, are you sure you want to do this again? How am I here? And I've realized there's this chain that we start meeting like-minded individuals. We spoke about this before we started. And I said, you are one of the first people in my whole entire career that have shown me the most amount of generosity. And you probably don't remember this, is I'd recorded a show at Gold Reef City. And all the money had gone into editing the show and shooting the show and obviously making sure that the costs were covered. And the show ended up at your hands, at your studio in Midrand. Remember the studio that you guys worked in?
Yes.
Then that's the first time I actually met you. Then they were like, there's this guy, George, he has the footage, he has to put final mix and sound in it.
Oh, yes. That's ringing a bell.
Then I was like, snap. Then I have to go there. Then I got in my car. Then I was like, man, I don't have money for this. And I remember I met you at reception. You were like, yo, bro, come through. And then I went into the studio just before I was about to tell you that I can't afford to have, you were like, don't worry about it. I was like, don't worry about what? You were like, it's taken care of. I've put on the sound. I hope you like the soundtrack. And you played, and I was like, I don't want to watch myself. And you were like, no, I'll just play you the sound. Then you played the music at the back, and I was like, oh, is this the sound that plays when I come on? You were like, yeah, because we can't use the other sound. I have licensing for it. I quieted this thing down and I added this music. And I was like, so what's in it for you? You were like, no, I just did it for you. It's just yours. And that generosity for me, you had done so much for me. A lot of people that I was close to at the time had said so many things about me that were untrue, and yet there you were. You had just met me a few times in casual spaces, and you did so much for me when I couldn't afford it. So when you call, you're one of a few people that I literally mean it when I say anytime for you, because you don't even remember that moment of generosity. And you imparted that on me as much as other people have other things, a spirit of generosity. It is never too much. It is never too little. It is always enough just to give what you have. And you gave me a lot that time, and you gave me a show. And I won't forget that. And I knew you had, bro, because you're such a nice person.
Myself. I probably just didn't know about the royalties that time. I didn't know how to charge, guys. No, I'm kidding. That's beautiful, man. Thank you for sharing that, bro. That's. Do you mind me asking, bro, what are these things that you're doing outside of comedy that's bringing you so much money? Because you want to cut as well, my man.
Sure.
No, but what are these things? Like, what are you up to?
I'm lucky enough to be associated with a brand right now. I obviously won't mention them because obviously these things will live forever, and then next thing it will be 20. No, it will be 20 years from now. And I'll be like, I'm not involved with you anymore. Why are we still hearing this? Where I'm like having the most amount of fun, where they've just had me for me. I do a podcast as well with a friend of mine called Josh Pincus.
Got you.
He convinced me to start doing this podcast called Single Minded. We're not making a ton of money from that, but we're having the most amount of fun.
Amazing.
Okay,
but you're not doing you're not started a crypto company there on the side that you guys are hustling on?
No.
Okay, so you're still talking within this realm.
Within this realm, within the same industry.
I saw the campaign yesterday.
It's
phenomenal.
Thank you so much. Within the same industry, it's just things, phone calls happen, emails land up on my thing, contracts, and then my worth is being valued, and I show up and I speak at places and I write things and I do things, and I'm so much happier doing those things because finally I feel like I'm doing it for me. I'm not doing it to prove how good I am or how nice I am or how malleable I am.
Yeah.
And like I said, I feel the most amount of satisfaction from multi-million rand deals to I'm happy with 1,000 rand.
Yes.
And that 1,000 rand helps me build another pillar that I can stand underneath and feel like this roof is secured. So for me, I treat 1,000 rand the same way I treat a million rand. And, I never thought I would have the same feeling about having 1 million versus having 1,000 rand. And for me, I'm happier now because I know that I'm doing it with people that love the other thing as much as I love it as well. They're satisfied on their end. I'm satisfied on my end. And I get to fly and meet my friends and hang out with my friends. I get to spend time with my daughter. I get to ride my bike in the mountains and have a good time and not have to worry about if I'm here, then what does the other person think? And I've purchased the ultimate freedom, which was trying to live again, George. And I never thought it would be possible. And I'm enjoying living again and trying to be better at it. Because I think I was horrible before.
Yeah, but you're thriving, my man. You're looking like a mini Rick Ross here, coming with your
Is the beard oil?
Yeah, my man. No, it's you've definitely glowed up, bro, and just gotten healthy. On that side, bro, is there something like, are you just eating healthier? Are you training or like?
I try to, but sometimes I don't. But I try to. Sometimes I don't. What I try to do is let go of guilt. I watched this video coincidentally this morning, and I didn't know I was doing it all along. It said, this guy said he had a neighbor who was 104 years old, but she didn't look a day over 75 years old.
Crazy.
And she asked her, how do you look so young? And she said, I don't have negative guilt and emotions that are coursing through my body. Because what happens is those emotions start weighing you down, and then they'll manifest in your body. Then you'll start being dragged down and you start looking the way you feel. And I started thinking to myself, I look at pictures after my son had passed away, and I'm like, who's this guy? I was very sad. I don't look like myself. And I knew that I wasn't myself. And I knew there was so much guilt attached to his passing, which any parent would have. Yeah. There was so much anger against myself that if I didn't stop doing all those jobs, maybe perhaps having a crap load of money would have purchased, I don't know what.
Filled that space.
Filled the space, that I could go buy something. And I've done that before. I've bought sports cars before. I bought things, and I didn't feel as good as I feel now having a glass of water with you, or having coffee, or having a conversation with you and your partner and just laughing and just having a good time. Is if only someone would have told me that that was the trick. So right now I try as much as I can to learn to have an emotional, spiritual control alt delete button. When something happens and it doesn't feel good, doesn't sit well with me, I draw the lesson. And as soon as I'm done with that, I press Control Alt Delete. I don't attribute that to someone else being me as well. I don't go, it's George's fault or it's Eugene's fault. I go, it should have happened. What is the lesson? Just after I've picked up the lesson, however uncomfortable it is, I don't choose suffering. I choose learning, then I Control Alt Delete it. And I don't try to carry as much baggage as I possibly can. I try to be as light as I possibly can, so that whenever I speak, or whenever I interact, I'm not bringing what had happened to me before, but I'm bringing what I'm going through now, which is I try to have as much joy in the present moment, because I know that's what I can control. But the past is gone and the future is yet to happen. But right now, all of this is what matters to me the most, Because that one final hour with my son, if I knew it was the final hour, I would have done so much more. We would have stood in the sun in the garden more. Because we stood there for 10 minutes and I went back inside. And I was like, wow, we're standing outside. We stood in the lawn.
Yeah.
Outside. And he was fast asleep on my chest. And I didn't know that was the last hour that he was going to be in my arms. But if I had known that, so how about I approach life like that now? And I try to do that, George, and I try hard, and I try to tell other people to try and do that you can live. And that's what life is about. It's about learning, and it's about putting into practice what you have learned, and you preach the gospel of how life could be and how great life could be and how much of a gift you can be to others. Instead of sitting there thinking what life has taken away from you, you can think, what can I give back to other people?
I love that, bro.
Yeah,
it's
man.
really, really incredible to see you in the space.
Yeah,
you really are standing in the sun, and you really are just, found this beautiful way to sort of mitigate suffering, bro. Where you're going, that's just not worth. Let's get around this. Like, we're not going to sit and suffer. Let's find a way to move on, and let's find a way to we're not trying to forget. We're not putting it away and just saying, we're not going to talk about that. It's just, let's find a way to coexist and not suffer on the path,
Yes.
And it's insane, bro. It's so inspiring, bro. That just, I feel like this weight off me, bro, just having this chat with you, because it's like, it's really inspiring to see how someone can take these steps. And it's not like you were like, hey, bro, I took a 6-week course there in, you know what I mean? It's like, it's just this, like, naturally how life has just, and you've been present enough to pick up the signs and go with that flow. And it's like, man, it's so inspiring to see you in the space, bro. I'm so excited for what is coming for you next, bro.
Thank you, bro.
In terms of like specials, you said you just done one now.
The Showmax, yeah.
Okay.
The Showmax one is coming up. And then the first one that I shot, instead of commercializing it, I want to give it to the people.
Amazing.
The first stand-up that I did shot by Lemonka, that I did at Gold Reef City. I want to release it as parts in YouTube.
Amazing.
On YouTube for people to just consume and
I love that.
And have a good time. So I want to give back.
Amazing.
So I'm busy doing that. And other than that, I'm just living, man. I'm just
Epic,
happy.
Bro. Epic,
yeah, I can feel it inside. Like
amazing.
There's a little fire that goes on and I'm like, let's keep this spark going.
Incredible, bro. And in terms of like any sort of transition into, do you want to do anything in other spaces, like in the film side, is there anything else that's catching your eye creatively to say, yo, I'm going to dabble in a couple of other creative realms?
I'm obsessed with podcasts.
Okay.
I consume a lot of, we've had these conversations before.
Yes.
We speak about podcasts. I look at what MacG does.
Yes.
And he's the other person that you put me onto.
Yeah.
And you put me onto doing, because I said, no, I don't want to do that show. And you're like, bro, you want to do that show.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'll do it for you. Then you were like, sharp, I won't let you down. I did the show and my life changed, and him and I formed the bond.
Amazing.
And he's one of those people that when he phones, I'll literally go, okay, sharp, where do you need me?
Yeah.
And if it wasn't for your generosity to introduce me to him.
Yeah.
So we're coming full circle, you and I, in these weird spaces. Over 15 years almost. We're just coming in this. So I enjoy that in life right now. I love podcasts. I love seeing people express themselves in podcasts. I watched the first episode of your podcast and I couldn't help but put it out in my stories. And I was like, this is what I'm talking about. Yeah. This is the quality that comes from South Africa. There's a level of maturity that comes from a host of a show. The attention to detail in choosing your guest and having the setting and making them feel comfortable and giving them the space to say what they want to say. That's what I love. I wish there was more podcast voices. I want there to be more podcast voices. I want us to not be defined about what happens politically in our country, about what happens politically in the world, because that will all change.
Yeah.
But we must be conscious enough to know that right now we can affect the change in our small little circles.
100%.
So I tried as much as I could when I'm on a podcast to speak about conscientizing people about their rights and about voting and about the importance of knowing the value that we have in our democracy, because we're sitting here because of that. And I wish there was more voices that could highlight the talented, that could highlight the change makers, and you're doing it already.
Yes.
So that burden is off my shoulders, because I know that I don't have the ability that you have to have the time and the access and the technical know-how to put all of those people together. So when I see you doing it, and I'm like, whew, someone else is doing it, and they will so benefit from this. And because your show is such high quality, it will not stand in South Africa alone. Everyone in the world can listen to your content and see the kind of person that you are, and also understand your journey, because all what you have is because people just like being around you.
Yeah.
People do shows with you because they like you. People come to your show because they like you. And the whole world is going to experience what we've been privileged enough to experience as your close circle of people, to know how generous you are, how open-minded you are, and what a gentle soul and spirit you are, that wants to uplift people and show them the tricks behind the magic, and then share that knowledge with people. And you doing that makes me happy, and makes me glad. And I'm like, Jesus, man, we've come a long way, and I'm happy that it's happening. So that's what's catching my eye right now is my love for podcasts.
Amazing.
Consuming them, and also just a little bit making a contribution as a guest or maybe as a host on my own.
I love that.
But right now, I'm satisfied. My plate is has enough for
Amazing.
me.
You got the things that you're busy with, and it's like, let's redefine and refine these things and take it to that absolute.
And mastery is not the goal.
Amazing.
Yeah,
amazing.
Participation is. I just want
that
to be part of
journey
it.
is the goal, just to be a part of it.
Just want to be a part.
To be a part of that process. And I love that, bro, that's your approach. It's not trying to be, I want to be the best. It's like, no, I want to just enjoy the path to wherever this goes. Bro, lastly, I just want to leave people with, you know, if now the same way you had the Gao moment, like if someone is having that moment with this podcast, like what would your couple of words be for someone who's, you know, they understand, they maybe have good taste in comedy, they find certain things, maybe they're funny around their friends. What is the process you would suggest? And what is the first step to take? Like if young person's watching this and like doesn't know how to pull that trigger, wanting to be a stand-up comedian? Wanting to be a stand-up comedian.
I don't think there's such a thing as stand-up comedy, first of all.
Okay.
I think that's just a term that people, you know, like when they say you're going on a cruise, some people call it sailing.
Yeah.
In the water in a ship going somewhere, right?
Yeah,
some people call that a job because they're out there trolling and trying to catch fish.
That.
I feel like if your incentive would be money, then you'd call it stand-up. If your incentive is to be in front of people and make them laugh, and as many people as you can, as often as you can, then that's your calling. You can do it at home with 3 people.
Yes.
Technology is here now. You can do it online with the amount of followers that you have. You can do that. You don't need a room.
Yeah, 100%.
You can go ask someone for their audience and be in that room. So you can do stand-up anyway. You can do it in a park when people are walking past, and you can start telling them what you think. You can record videos and tell them what you think. So with all of that, ask yourself the question, do you want to do comedy or do you want to get paid to be a stand-up?
I love that.
If you can answer that, then you know what to do, you know? But I don't think if you love the thing, you wouldn't be able to answer the 2 questions. But if you can answer one comfortably,
I love that.
Then
so when you're at a dinner party and someone turns to you and says, what do you do for a living? What's your answer?
First, I used to be very coy about it, and I'd be like, I do this and that. Now I just answer and I say, I live.
I love that.
And then it sounds sarcastic, but it's not. I live. Sometimes I live in front of an audience of 2,000 people, like last month at that big gala show.
You'll say that to them.
And sometimes I live like I did last year with 8,000 people, 10,000 people at the show that you were producing.
Yes.
And sometimes I live in this room with just you and I having this conversation. So the best way to answer what I do for a living, I live. That's my job.
I love that.
Yeah.
Good to be alive with you, my brother.
Let's be alive together.
I love that, bro. Thank you so much for coming through, man. I really appreciate you, bro.
Anytime for you, George.
Like I always say, man, I'm really excited for where you're going to take it and what you're going to come with. You always push a boundary for me. You know, you're one of those people, you don't play it safe, and you always take it there. You take those risks. You're willing to try fill up rooms, and you're willing to try material, and you're willing to and I love that. There's a playfulness, and it feels like you're having fun. And I am very grateful, bro, to have had front row seat at your career for the last 15 years. And you know, you're one of the few people that I'm just like, man, when you're up to something, I know it's like, it's going to be something, bro. So really, really grateful, bro. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Anything else you want to leave people with, bro?
It's never too late to start over.
I love that.
Always remember, only you know what happened. You don't have to preach the negative and the bad experience of what happened to you to the world. It doesn't have to be your truth. Wayne Dyer said, if you want to know how much you've changed, just look at a picture of yourself as a 5-year-old and then ask yourself, who's that person? That's how much you've changed. And you can still change, reinvent yourself, try hard, accept your failures, but don't dwell on them. Forgive yourself, forgive others, and just live for a living.
I love that, bro. Thank you so much. Much love, my brother.
Much love, George.
Killer, bro. Killer. I love that.
I hope I didn't bore the fuck out of your audience.
No way.